Hello and welcome to Frank's School. Fourth year, 21st day, first video. Now there is another series of videos that I'm putting on in real time. Third year, 180th day plus. I went into the summer and I thought of it as summer school. Well, I've added to that. I've just been giving them numbers, so I'm up to 190 or something. So anyway, they're there. But now back to the main event here, and that is Robert MacNeil's The Story of English. The second episode is called The Mother Tongue, and I'd ask you to watch the first and the second out of 7 parts. You could go on, but you got to stop somewhere, and it seems like that's as good a place to stop as any. Now, in this, he will speak about Sanskrit, the ancient language of India. A man named Sir William Jones who figured out that Indo-European existed, or at least he proposed that group of languages. Robert MacNeil explains this very clearly. You'll hear about Anglo-Saxon. The year AD 449, I always say somewhere around AD 450 when I taught it, because that's just the way I was about dates, but there it is, when the Anglo-Saxons invaded England. You'll hear a connection to King Arthur and who he might have been and what it has to do with all this. Then he'll jump to Wales. Now Wales, the Welsh language is it is Indo-European, but it's not very closely related at all to English. You'll hear some of it. And one of the things about this documentary is it's visually interesting. There are interesting things to see, even if you didn't pay any attention to what he was saying. I think it can carry your students' interest, or your interest, I rather hope. It's not as flashy, as I said, as James Burke's the day the universe changed, and it's much easier to follow, but it's similar in a way in that you go all over the world and you see really interesting things. English and German, we find out, are very closely related. English, he's going to mention at one point, is a Germanic language. So many people get confused on that. They think that it's a Romance language, like French. No, it's Germanic, with a lot of vocabulary from the Romance languages. And you'll see the inflections. An example of his little sentence, "The king meets the bishop." Inflections are the endings of the words, and they affect the structure of sentences in so many languages. Now, I dealt with this extensively in earlier, the first year that I taught, and I created various playlists. Well, there's a playlist called Linguistics, and if you find this interesting, well, there I lay it out. I wouldn't really change a thing about what I taught back at that time, beginning with the first year, the 35th day, the first video, up through there, but they're right on that playlist. And I highly recommend that. I think linguistics is a very important science to know a little bit about if you're going to study a foreign language. So I recommend that. And finally, I want to mention a man named Tim Hirschberger. He's dead now. And I didn't see him. He was my student in 9th grade. Oh, back in the early 1980s, maybe. It might have been the end of the 1970s. And when I taught this material back at that time, I always taught it. I never let a year go by that I didn't teach about where English came from. He like flipped out over it. It changed his life, I think. He tried to explain it. He'd never heard anything like that before. That our language has a history of its own. That the words that we live our lives speaking these words and using this language, the language lives much longer than any given lifespan. And it really had a profound effect on him. I didn't stay in real close contact with him, but he ended up moving to France or Holland and became completely fluent in French. But it was one of those epiphanies, or one of those turning points in his life, when I laid this out on the board where our language had come from. So I don't know, I just never forgot that, what an impact that had on that boy. At that time he was a boy. All right, see you tomorrow.